Hey guys, Solid here, and yes, it's news time, so let's get into it. First off, we have Honda's announcement that they're going to be making a CT125 Hunter Cub to replace the CT110. I also wanted to discuss Triumph's Tiger 900 Rally Pro that they've just released. There's some really interesting developments with the engine there. I also wanted to talk about the motorcycle industry as a whole. KTM and BMW are pulling out of the major motorcycle shows at the end of the year, so that's a really interesting move. And lastly, I wanted to answer some viewer questions, so let's get into the video. So in the midst of a fairly quiet period for adventure bike news, Honda has released its magical little CT125 Hunter Cub. Now, I'm excited for this for a few reasons. The first is this little bike, the CT110 that it's replacing, is a very special bike to Australians for a couple of reasons. The first is we can get these so cheaply. Australia Post used to use these as their postie bikes, so of course we call them postie bikes. And we could pick these up at auction sometimes for 250 bucks. So they're a really cheap little commuter bike, and some guys even adventurize these. You can regularly see adventure rallies exclusively for these little bikes. The second reason this is really interesting to me is that this little bike holds a special place in my heart, as I'm sure a lot of kids that grew up in my era. Now, this was the bike that you would graduate to from a E15. I grew up on a farm. I wasn't actually allowed a dirt bike, but a lot of my friends had dirt bikes and they graduated from their E50s straight to a postie bike because they were so cheap and readily available, and as kids we could learn to wrench on them. So I have a lot of fond memories of this postie bike, so to see a new version really gets me excited. So we get a lot of nice new modern features on this bike. We get better brakes, we get an LCD instrument cluster, LED headlight. We also get some little tweaks to the suspension, just some nice little updates to make this a more modern machine. Now the little 125cc motor is already proven. We have it in the Super Cub, and it's also the same engine that's out of the Grom, so that's fantastic news, because we'll be able to throw the big bore kits straight at this bike as soon as it's released. So thumbs up there, because we're going to need all the power we can get, because this currently makes 8.5 horsepower and it makes 11 Newton meters of torque. So we're not exactly going to be setting land speed records, but that's not what this bike is about. This is about ultralight adventure riding, taking this on the trails and just using it as a shopping trolley during the week, heading down the road to get milk, and it costing you $0 because these things are so fuel efficient. So into some of the more negative news surrounding this bike. Japan has announced that this is going to be a Japanese domestic motorcycle, at least in the near future. There have been some leaks that there are patents in both America and Europe, but there's no official announcement if this is going to make it off Japanese shores. Now, I've kind of got my fingers crossed that the Australia Post will get a bunch of these bikes because they're so well designed for the Australian kind of conditions. We have a lot of unpaved and dirt roads, and that's why this bike was so fantastic as a postie bike. So I really hope that they get this as their next postie bike. But the second thing, and probably the biggest hang up I have, is the price. It's 440,000 yen. Now that converts to about 6,600 Australian, which is stupidly expensive. So Honda, listen to this. If you're going to charge Aussies $6,500 for a 125cc Hunter Cub, you can go and sodomize yourself with a rusty spoon, because that is just insane money to spend on a little bike like that. Especially when we can pick up a CT110 for a couple $100. It makes no sense. Now, if they sold it like around the $4,500, $5,000, I can see that kind of making more sense and not being such a crazy purchase. Especially considering how careful we have to be with spending our money at the moment. The market really is changing and people are wanting to make their money go as far as they can. So I'm not sure about you, but I'm not comfortable with almost spending $7,000 on a little retro bike like that. It just doesn't make any sense. But I'd like to know what you think. Is this the kind of thing you absolutely love and you'd be happy to spend that kind of coin? or would you rather pick this up for a much cheaper price? Let me know in the comment section down below. So the second topic of the day is a Triumph Tiger 900 Rally. Now, I debated whether to put this in the main section or the viewer questions, and I decided this needed some coverage. And the reason I haven't covered this before is purely my own fault. And that's because I just discounted this model. I just assumed this was the regular update with bold new graphics and a slight little tweak to the exhaust to get 1 more horsepower, and then Triumph called it a new model. So I just put it in that category, as a lot of manufacturers have done over the years. I've got a bit of fatigue with the big adventure bikes. But a viewer asked me the other week to have a look at it properly, so I did go through a read. And bugger me if Triumph haven't put their finger out of their bum and actually put some effort into this redesign. And I really am quite enthusiastic about this bike now. And the major thing that caught my eye is that this is using the same triple, but it's obviously bigger now. It's 900 cc's, but they've done away with a 180-degree crank. So they've got a 270-degree crank triple. Now that's really an interesting motor. You don't see that very often. So that really has me intrigued, and it sparked the enthusiasm again. So I just wanted to highlight this bike, and apparently Triumph have really put some effort into changing almost everything on this bike. We have shower suspension instead of the WP suspension. They fixed the bash plate problem. Now the bash plate mounts straight into the bottom of the engine rather than those stupid little rubber grommets. A few of the other fantastic features for the Triumph is the shift assist. I think that's absolutely amazing on the trails. It means you'll be able to change gears without having to use the clutch, which will make great sense in the tighter, more technical stuff. Although I'm not brave enough to take a huge pig like that off into technical terrain. But if you do have balls of steel and you are one of those guys that takes their big adventure bike in the tougher terrain, this will be a great addition, not having to worry about the clutch when you're bouncing and trying to juggle 200 plus kilos in the rocky single track. So I think that shift assist will be a game changer. One of my major complaints with riding the old Tiger 800, it was a good bike. There was nothing particularly wrong with it. It was just a bit bland to me. So the fact that they've done this work on the motor, especially at 270 degree, that should really give it some character, I think, and much needed injection of enthusiasm in the market. So KTM and BMW have both pulled out of the major motorcycle shows at the end of the year. Now it's good to see companies being proactive like that, but the market itself is kind of suffering at the moment. Some industry insiders have shown me some data on motorcycle sales recently, and it's not looking pretty. The sales are tanking pretty hard at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving on, whether we will see a shift down to more budget-friendly bikes and the market will shift with us. I think that would be fantastic to see a focus more towards small displacement, dual sport and motorcycle markets. I mean, how many of us have been just pleading for an EFI DRZ with 6 speeds or a WR450R? It'd be fantastic to see them put more money into the lower end of the market. Of course, I don't think that will necessarily happen, as that will be a lot of R&D and companies aren't looking to spend a lot of money at the moment. So what I think will actually happen is we'll just won't see many new models in the next couple of years. So I think we might see a bit of stagnation moving forward in motorcycle production, which is a bit disappointing. What I think you'll see is what Honda and Yamaha have been so successfully doing recently. And that's taking one chassis and one engine and building lots of different bikes around it. So I think we'll see a continuation of that theme and the market kind of shifting towards more cheaper and frugal motorcycles, which I think can be a good thing. So I'd like to know what you guys think. So now we move on to viewer questions. So Loves All Bikes has 2 parts to his question. The first part is he's looking for a Japanese bike to do some two-up adventure riding in America. Now, thinking through all the best two-up bikes for adventure touring, my top 2 would be what you suggested, either the V-Strom 1000. I think that's a great bike for the price, and it will have the power to carry you and your partner or your friend and your luggage on the back and just be comfortable doing big miles. The other one I really liked when I rode it was the Super Tenere. That's another criminally underrated motorcycle for two-up touring. I think both of those bikes are really good. The Africa Twin I don't think is quite as well suited to the two-up riding. I think it's really a one-person bike with luggage. It just doesn't feel like there's the same amount of room, but it really depends on the kind of size of your body. So your mileage might vary. I think V-Strom or Super Tenere really. There's also the Versys 1000, of course, but it's not quite as off-road orientated, so you don't get that same versatility. So that's my opinion. I think you're on the right track, V-Strom or Super Tenere, mate. So happy hunting. The second part to his question is he saying he's finding it difficult riding his WR250R. He can't get his feet on the ground quite as comfortably as he would like. Now, you've said you've already got the low seat from Seat Concepts and you're struggling for other ideas to get the bike lower to the ground, and you're worried about changing the geometry of the bike by lowering the suspension. I would recommend getting the lowering link. Yes, it does change the geometry, but I have reports from friends who have used this, and there's heaps of stuff online on the forums about this not really changing the handling characteristics at all, whilst lowering the bike for those who are a bit shorter and making them feel comfortable. So I would really check something out like the Zeta lowering link or the Yami link. They're both great products and they should bring the bike down to a level where you feel comfortable riding it. So I hope that helps, mate. So the second viewer question is from Miguel, and he's wanting to know about the new radar system coming on the 2021 KTM 1290 Super Adventure. Now, before you get all excited and think Knight Rider, yes, the KTM is getting radar, but it's purely just for active cruise control. So what that means is it will be cruise control where the bike will be able to regulate its speed according to the speed of the car in front of it whilst maintaining a safe distance. So it's a fantastic addition to the bike. I really think this will be great for commuters. I don't know about you, but when I was working a really hectic government job, doing 12-hour days with no lunch breaks, having a car with active cruise control to commute home when you're just absolutely buggered just took some of the exhaustion out of driving home. So having this on a bike would really make me consider using this as a commuter in my daily travels, or just stuck in traffic. It makes it really easy in heavy traffic just for the bike to kind of maintain a speed. So I think it's a fantastic addition. The other interesting thing about the 1290 is that it's using the 790's fuel tank idea, and that's putting the fuel right down low, down near the foot pegs, which is a really interesting idea. I'm not sure how I feel about it. It seems like it's popular enough on the 790. Who knows how it will go on the bigger 1290. It will definitely help with lowering the center of gravity. But I do wonder whether they fix the crutch cooking heat that comes out of the 1290. I know a lot of you guys that have 1290s have often complained about those heat issues. So hopefully they fix that first and foremost, because that was one of the major problems with the 1290, of course. But the radar is nice tech to see, and the fuel tank design definitely is interesting. The last question is from Daft Twat. That's a fantastic name, by the way, mate. Gave me a bit of a chuckle. And Daft Twat is suggesting that the middleweight Africa twin that I was talking about last month could actually turn out to be a Transalp. Now, that's a very interesting idea, and one I think could be a very real possibility. And there were plenty of other viewers who also suggested this down in the comment section, that if Honda went with a more budget orientated bike, they might bring out the Transalp name, because if you remember, that bike was a really great adventure tourer that was quite cost effective. So if they went the budget route, they might bring out this Transalp name. So Daft Twat, yes, I do think it could be a possibility that they do bring this out and call it the Transalp rather than an Africa Twin, depending on its off-road ability and the price they set it. So I think it's a very real possibility that we could see this be called a Transalp instead of an Africa Twin, but I also think we could see this be called the CB790X or CB800X, or maybe even just the NC800X with a 19-inch front wheel. Who really knows at this point? We do have some good guesses, but we're not really sure at the moment. So we'll just have to keep following Honda's announcements to find out more information. Let me know your thoughts down below. So that's the end of viewer questions. Before I head off, I just wanted to float an idea with you. I had a thought for a new video series. I love doing the viewer questions in this adventure news, and it's something I will continue to do, but not all of your questions are well suited to this video format. So I wanted to take those questions and create its own video, because some of them are more cheeky or more controversial, or some of them deserve an answer and they really deserve a long and well thought out answer, but they're not really well suited to this video format. So I thought I could make a video series based completely just on your more controversial and cheeky questions and discussing more intricate things about the market and what we would like to see in the future. So if that's something you would like to see, please comment down below and let me know, and it's something I would definitely like to give a go. So that about wraps up this episode of Adventure News. As always, guys, please comment down below. Some of you have been really fantastic actually in breaking some stories and leading me to the information. It really helps me out when other people are also contributing to the research. So for all the guys that have been doing that, thanks and thumbs up. I have thanked you individually down below in the comment section, but I just wanted to publicly, for all of you who do bring stories to my attention, thank you. It really helps and adds to the channel, I think, and to the discussion as well. So as always, guys, I've been Chronicles of Solid, and I'll see you in the next episode. Catch you later.